Welcome one more day to Space and Harmonia. Today I'm going to continue with the subject of meaningful coincidences, synchronicities, expanding the subject to convey a special message, because these coincidences are telling something very important. They are a call to awakening and to remain awakened. They can even be an indication to do something specific, as I'm going to show later on, because there are frequencies that repeat over and over, frequently, as its name tells. But there are several coincidences that are shocking, because they teach specific lessons, and we can learn much from them. I remember that when I was about 7 years old, in the year 1989, I was with my friends in the playground of the school. It was made of sand, and it was beside a wall of rock where we used to hunt lizards, little lizards. On the other side, there was a slope full of bushes, vegetation, and it ended up in a railroad where the train went. And one day we saw a snake on the playground. It was obviously coming from the bushes, the rocks in the other side. And we were amazed because none of us had ever seen a snake. It was not too big, but interesting for us, obviously. Some of us even took some sticks and started to touch the animal, which curled itself. And at some point the rang bell, so we had to go back to class. Anyway, I couldn't stop thinking about the animal, so when the classes ended, I went running to see the snake again. But I didn't find it. A fellow came and we started to look for it. We searched and searched, but we didn't find it. And at some point, we just started to get bored. And we went to rest in a sort of metal castle that was in the playground, not too far from where we had seen the snake, just 2 meters from the wall. And I wanted to have some fun, so I just said, "Hey, be careful, don't move. The snake is right in front of you." And my fellow didn't get very scared. He got so bored that he could not stand anymore, so he left. But I stood in the playground because my dad hadn't come yet. I usually had to wait a long time because sometimes my dad was working and I was always the last in being picked up from the school. In those days, I remember I used to play with anything around. I made bows and arrows with sticks. I took the cover from Coca-Cola tins to put pencils. I made balls of mud. I just had fun with anything around. But that day I wanted to find the snake, and I kept looking for it, but I didn't find anything. So at some point, tired of searching, I went to the fence and I put both of my hands on the fence. And at that moment, I realized the snake was just like 20 centimeters away from my face. So I was so scared that I jumped backwards. I almost tore down the whole fence because my fingers were in it, and it remained trembling back and forth. Remembering this later on was very funny. And I was also trembling, panic-stricken, in shock, thinking, did I cause that with my mind? Because I had just tried to scare my friend, telling, "Don't move." And it was just where I was trembling. That was very interesting. The synchronicity was spectacular, and it was so shocking that this memory came many years later. And when I started to ponder about synchronicities, I realized that was a very big lesson. Don't try to scare anyone. Be careful with your intentions, because reality can teach you a greater lesson. It can scare you even more. So we have to take care of what we think, what we feel, our intentions towards others. Reality is always responding to our attitudes, even though we don't realize it, especially when we are interacting with others. Sometimes people become aggressive or criticize us because we are having some attitude that is triggering that behavior. Sometimes it's because of other reasons, but in many occasions it's just a response to something in us. So there is an opportunity to change. There is a synchronicity, if you notice, between our behavior and the behavior of others, like a response or a mirror. Everything is mirroring the way we perceive. So this is how we can learn lessons. And sometimes the interaction is very interesting. I remember that last week when I published the video in Spanish, a woman commented a few days later, and she told a very interesting experience. 2 weeks before watching my video, she had been watching some movies in which a dad or a mother gave to their daughter or son a watch as a gift. Several movies with that theme. And short after, her husband told her that his mom was going to give her a very nice watch as a gift. So she started to ask the universe, what are you trying to tell me? And I think moments later she watched a movie in which someone mentioned a passage in John 9, I was blind and now I can see. The famous phrase of the old blind man. And later on she watched my video and she was in shock, because in that video I spoke of synchronicities, of a watch, telling the story of my friend Beth, which found a watch in the hills of Indiana. It was called Majestic, and she had been saying the hills of Indiana are not noticed for being so majestic, so there was a connection. So this woman I was referring to was amazed about the coincidences, and she left a very long comment in the comment section in YouTube. And I was also in shock, because when I read her words, I realized that I had also mentioned that passage of John 9 days before in a chat. Someone asked about a proof of reincarnation mentioned in the New Testament. And the manager of that chat asked for help, someone to give an answer. So I gave an explanation mentioning the passage of John 9 where the apostles asked the master if a man had been born blind because he had seen or because his parents had seen. Obviously the apostles were thinking that because in the Hebrew wisdom there is something known as Gilgul, the return of the parts of the soul, and some of the conditions that we have might be due to things that happened in another life. That's known as the pre-existence of the soul, a subject which was considered by the first church fathers. Father Origen spoke of it as the pre-existence of the soul. And it was accepted originally by the church, but the subject was censored in the 6th century by Justinian, I think. Obviously, because you cannot control people, telling they can pre-exist and exist again in other life. You need to say that evil people go to hell and so on. Anyway, the master in that passage replies that neither that man sinned nor his parents, because he is born blind so that the works of the divine manifest. Some would say, so that the divine grace manifest. In other words, it doesn't matter what happened in the past. And it's true that people as a whole don't reincarnate, because there is something in us which comes from other existences. But that's not important, it doesn't matter. When we live in the true body of life, then we are free, we are liberated, and healing is already in ourselves. We just have to manifest that divine energy more and more. And I had been pondering about this a lot. I think Christians would speak of grace, divine grace, but it's very difficult to think in terms of being already healed when you are going through conditions of disease, for instance. And this is why many people can't understand these teachings, because they adopt the point of view of religion or the point of view of skepticism. They don't understand what living in the body of life means, connected to the divine cosmic consciousness, the universal conscience, which tells us what's the right action on every moment. And I was pondering about all these things when I wrote that message. So when I read the comment of that woman, I remember this, and I realized it was a very important coincidence. Some people say, well, that's just a coincidence, but it's a meaningful coincidence. That's the truth. A meaningful to us, to people who are connected and are pondering on certain deep questions. So reality is mirroring back to us the content of our heart and our mind, expanding our viewpoint, because we can learn there is an interaction between reality and ourselves. Let's say the divine intelligence within ourselves can point out certain aspects so that we pay attention. And this is the important element. Now, you notice these coincidences sometimes come accompanied by number sequences that repeat over and over. I remember one of the listeners wrote to me an email telling how he sees a lot the number 11 and 17 and other sequences, and how the number 17, for instance, is present in the 17 points of the 2030 agenda, or how the famous letter Q is the number 17 in the alphabet, and Q is chosen not only for the famous movement Q, but also for the document Q, which is supposed to be the source of some of the Gospels. The document Q is in reference to the German word Quelle, source, and many other coincidences related to the number 17, as you later on will see. And he mentioned how he noticed that the lottery sometimes was associated to these numbers as well. For instance, in one occasion, a person earned 47 million euro on the 17th of March, I think. In another occasion, it was on the 11th of August. Someone earned 17 million euro. And On the 17th of another month, again, another person earned 47 million euro. And this man says that that can be a sort of sign of elite groups to tell something or to give a mark that they are there. And I think this is very possible. Some organizations use number sequences as a sort of watermark, but these sequences also repeat in nature. So I think there are scientists or researchers that are aware of these sequences, and somehow they can also mirror these sequences in their projects. But as I say, these appear in nature. For instance, the number 147 is present in physical phenomena, including the connections in the DNA, and also in music. I have already proved how the harmonic intervals can be mirrored in the Sephirotic tree. In the right column, you can see 147. Some people ask me why I put 1 in Chokmah. Well, because the middle is I am, that's wholeness, from which our main goal, which is to give ourselves fully, that's the finality, comes forth, that's the one. The goal is the one, and we need to open a space to distribute that wholeness. The crown of life, Keter, can be represented with the gifts, the number 0, and 1 is mirrored in the gifts, so it repeats in Chokmah, 101. That will be a sequence. So the manifestation of the 1 is in Binah, the 2. Therefore, we can organize vibrations that way. And as you can see, the 147 is on the right column. I don't think this is a coincidence. It's telling something. Realize how the 369 is in the middle column. That's a very important number. Now there is another important number connected to all this, which is 137. The most important number in quantum physics, because 1 divided by 147 represents the so-called fine structure constant, which determines all the other constants in nature. Thanks to this constant, there is solidity, materiality, and it basically represents the division between light and darkness. We cannot have matter without an occultation of light. The 99% of the universe is comprised of dark matter and dark energy. So there is some light which we cannot see. Therefore, something must be unveiled, liberated. We cannot have these physical bodies without an occultation of light. And this is a division between light and darkness, because this universe is broken. Surprisingly, the word Kabbalah in Hebrew has a geometric value of 137. And Hebrew wisdom lays emphasis on unveiling the light of the cosmos. Some would say Messiah, Mashiach in Hebrew, means there is light, brain, understanding. So the life and light of the true master, the universal mind, must be unveiled in this dark universe. And this is why frequencies can be a call to awakening, because they are telling something, especially when we think in terms of vibration. Vibration is a musical language, by the way, so we have to become attuned to the vibrations, think like musicians, Because in a sense, music is the essence of life. And I can demonstrate a few principles with my voice, for instance. If I give a tone and double it, na, 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 that will be the double of the first. Then I can play the fifth, da, da, da. 5 would be connected and is 3 times faster than the first vibration. These are cosmic intervals that are present in famous soundtracks. Da da la da 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 da. Star Wars, because those cosmic intervals have a specific effect on ourselves. They are closer to the fundamental vibration, so they feel more stable. And they can be expressed with whole numbers. As I said, the octave vibrates twice as much as the first, and the fifth, which comes afterwards in the harmonic series, vibrates 3 times faster. This is why we can think of frequencies in terms of whole numbers, but also in terms of qualities, relations, meanings, as we are going to see in a while. It's true, as I said, that some organizations place certain numbers as a watermark, but the whole universe has a watermark, especially this matrix, which is full of codes, so to say. If you take the incomplete Sephirotic tree and put it horizontally, you'll see how in the middle you get the famous date 9/11. The straight line behind the X is 9 in Roman numerals, and the X with a vertical line in front is 11. And we all remember what happened at that particular date in 2001. But notice how the middle also contains the symbol of Saturn, which is like a W. All this is connected to the so-called Metatron's cube, which is the structure of this fractal universe, this broken universe, where there is division between light and darkness. Something happened. Light was concealed because of the modifications of Lord gods. This is why the true light has nothing to do with any Lord. Remember how the word Lord is used to translate the tetragrammaton, the Yud He Vav He in scripture. In Greek they put Kyrios, and in Hebrew they say Adonai. In Phoenician language, Adon is the owner of slaves. So that's the religious mindset of an owner of human slaves, of human souls, because the Lord is the owner of souls. Nothing to do with the true Divine Master. The Divine Master didn't speak of any Lord. It's the cosmic universal mind. True conscience is not Lord, but a mind heart that dissolves any darkness, any slavery, and frees souls from deception. So we can think of numbers as a reminder of all this, because we can understand reality in terms of vibrations. Actually, some of the most recurrent sequences of numbers are the famous angelic numbers, 111, 222, 333, which I think are frequencies connected to the meaning of reality, and they can be a call to awakening. As I said, 1 expresses our goal, finality, to give ourselves fully, the ratzon alejaspia, the will to give, and 11 has to do with manifestation, because in the Fibonacci sequence, which we find all over nature, We have 0, 1, 1, therefore that's the 11, and 1 adds up to itself, giving 2, so it's the manifestation of the 1. 11 sums up 2. They are connected. So when we find a sequence such as 1111 in a clock or wherever, that's an indication of a mirroring effect. Something is being mirrored outside. There is a double manifestation where there is synchronicity. Actually, there is a famous passage in 1 Corinthians 11:11. Paul says, "There is no man without the woman in the Lord," even though I would say master, because, as I said, the message of issue has nothing to do with any Lord of anything. The master is our head, not the Lord. And obviously there is a mirroring effect between man and woman. One is mirroring something in the other. And actually, there are souls that are connected. They can be twin souls. And this is why some couples see this number repeating. This might be indicating something. Now, when we see the sequence 111, this is a call to pay attention to our intentions, thoughts, feelings, because they are going to be manifested, mirrored outside. And the sequence 222 is an indication that those intentions, thoughts, feelings are being manifested or are in the way to be manifested, and we have to have faith, trust, because if our intentions are pure, the outcome is going to be positive. So beware of what you think and what you wish, because it can come true. Now the sequence 333 is connected to the universal love, fertility, the coming of something new, connectivity, the relation between two opposites. So it's a call to bring a change. Now if we see 444, this might be an indication we are not in tune with the fundamental vibration of life and love, and we can be living conditions of strict materiality constriction. But 444 can also be an integration in materiality. So it's a call to bring a spiritual life into the material world, because there is no division between spirit and matter. Energy and matter are two poles of the same movement, so to say, the same wave. And when we see 555, it's a call to change. Something is about to happen, which will bring us out of the comfort zone. Actually, look how curious. The other day, as I was pondering on all these meanings in my room, at home, in front of the computer, when I arrived to 555 and I started to think about it, I watched the clock in the computer and it said 17:55, 5 to 6. And I was in shock because obviously that was 555. And I was somehow expectant to the change. This is my year of change, actually. We have several years of change. And in a general sense, it's also a year of change because it sums up 2021. So be aware of changes when you find this sequence and think it's for the positive. Never think the change will bring something bad. It's an opportunity to be more integral. Now, when we find the sequence 666, the famous number of man and the beast, this indicates there is tension between spirit and matter, and our selfish attitude must die. It's a call to transcend our selfishness and spiritualize matter. So as you see, is connected to the other sequences. 6 is not necessarily bad, but our egoic personality must be serving our deeper essence. Our ego must be servant of our true self, so to say. But when we see 777, this is an indication we are succeeding. This is maximum success. 7 is a number of victory. Look at the spheres in the Sephirotic tree according to the configuration I show, and you'll see that Netzach, victory, corresponds with the number 7. What a coincidence. Now the number 888 is an indication there is abundance of materiality, of life as well. There is a flow between heaven and earth. The 8 is like an infinite in a vertical form. So there is a constant flow of energy between heaven and earth, and this expands the abundance of life and material things in general. Matter is not bad in itself. The problem is when we take the true spirit of life from matter. That's when darkness becomes stronger. So we have to be liberated with the flow of abundant life. And 8 is a number of responsibility and liberation. Curiously, the Greek word Jesus in Greek gematria has a number of 888. What a coincidence. And the number 999 has to do with maximum potentiality of energy. So when we see that number, it might be an indication that we are being rescued from constriction, that a vivifying spirit from ourselves is taking us out of darkness, that the true Holy Spirit is growing in ourselves, and it's a goal to fulfill our mission using our life energy to accomplish our divine tasks. Therefore, we are being called as chosen ones. So when we are attuned to the universe and the true reality, the tree of lives, then we can be an expression of the Holy One. The Holy One lives through us, and no one has the right to say we are sinners, we are idiots, we are inferior, we are monkeys, apes, whatever, because that's not the truth. Therefore, we have to claim our spiritual authority. And when we start to adopt this attitude of self-assurance and confidence, then healing starts to take place. I can attest for this because I suffer different conditions, allergies, and many problems. And this started to disappear as I became more self-confident, realizing that divine life must manifest through ourselves because we have a divine mission. Life must be brought back to the light where it belongs, and there are a few here for the task. Are you a chosen one? If so, pay attention to the language of the soul, the language of reality, because everything is speaking, using vibrations, connections, and it's telling us everything is connected despite of the fracture between light and darkness. And for now, thank you very much for listening with attention. If you find this interesting, leave comments to support the channel. Tell me about your synchronicities if you wish. Give thumbs up, subscribe, and click on the bell if you want to receive weekly notifications. And until the next time, let's keep opening space for the manifestation of the love without conditions, the integral universal consciousness and conscience that helps us do what we have to do in wholeness, living the infinite, blissful, serene life.